Hi everybody, welcome to my channel Frugalisama. My name's Sam, where I talk about all things dressmaking. This is day 3 of 100 days of sewing, and today I'm going to talk about fabric. So the previous days I've talked about sewing machines and other essential equipment, and essential equipment obviously is fabric. You can't really sew a great deal without fabric. So I will cover any other tools and equipment that I think you might want as opposed to definitely need, but I don't think you're going to get very far without any fabric. What I'm going to cover today is not specifically different fabric types, more sources of where you can find fabric on a budget. Obviously everybody's budget is different, so we can all afford different things. I've worn this particular jumpsuit today. This is the New Look 6446 because this was made with an old duvet cover. I'll just stand up like you should see it. Pockets. I bobbed some proper photographs in so you can see it properly. So I'm going to start with free fabric and how you can get hold of that. And I would say that if you'd watched my first video about sewing machines, if you've been lucky enough to get a machine from a friend or family member or somebody that you know, it's very likely that they may have some fabric kicking about that they no longer love or are willing to let go of, and you might be very lucky in that they let you have some of theirs. My experience of that is I've had fabric given to me by other people who sew that, you know, they don't no longer require it. And I'll try and insert a photograph if I can find it of quite a lot of fabric that I inherited from a friend of my mum's. I've spoken about this before, but she was a sewing teacher and she knew that she was terminal, so she wanted somebody to take on her fabrics, and she had a lot. Other places to get fabric from, have a look in your cupboards, old duvets, sheets, anything like that. If you're a very beginner sewer, you're probably not going to want to spend £22 a metre on some lovely Liberty and cut into your first project. These were actually made as a toile, just to see whether they fit or not. And I've worn these quite a lot actually. This duvet set cost me £1 from a car boot sale, and I've managed to get this jumpsuit from it, a little toile of a top, I think that's a chalk and notch top, a skirt, and I've used bits of it for linings for pockets and waistbands and things like that. So for £1, I think I've made my point about sewing not having to be an expensive hobby. If you can't get fabric if people don't give you fabric and you can't find anything in your cupboards, the next best place is probably charity shops. I don't have a great deal of success finding fabric in of itself in fabric shops. What I have found is maternity clothes, so that anything with a lot of fabric in it, so maxi dresses are ideal, anything that's old shirts, anything like that. If you go for the larger sizes, then oftentimes you get a lot more fabric. I've got I found an old skirt that I made a top out of. I'll insert it in one of my videos. I was wearing that, but I'll insert a picture of that again. So anything that's got a lot of pleats and gathers in at the top yields quite a lot of fabric. Obviously this isn't everybody's ideal way of sewing. I understand that, you know, you don't want to be messing about and you want to use proper fabric. So where else can you get proper fabric from? I've had quite a lot of success from our local markets. I'm really lucky in Yorkshire. We still have weekly markets. You can pick up things for £1 or £2 a metre. That is still available. You might not necessarily like everything that they've got for sale, but it is possible. So yeah, you've got your charity shops, probably car boot sales, and might be out of order right at the moment. We in the UK have what we call car boot sales. I think other countries call them garage sales, where people take their old things to be sold off. Duvets and duvet, that's where I found this fabric for this duvet cover. And usually you have to dig deep for things like this because it'll be thrown on the floor. Garments tend to get hung up, whereas duvets and duvet covers are probably sort of on the floor somewhere. So you have to look for it. It's not going to jump out on you. In the old days, we used to have something called jumble sales, and I have found fabric in those. However, they don't tend to have those quite so much now. They tend to be called tabletop sales. I have found fabric at tabletop sales, but it's mostly been furnishing fabric. So if that's what you like, then you might have some success there. These stashes might be something that you might want to look at. I've not found them to be particularly cheap. There is one going on Instagram now, which is D-Stash for Kids for Cancer, I think it's called. So you can be doing a bit of good as well. But they're not always the cheapest way of buying fabric, and sometimes you might have the postage to pay for. But it's a nice way to give to charity if that's what you want to do. So failing all that, what about looking in your own wardrobe? If you've been sewing for quite a while, there'll probably be a few things in there that you've sewn and never worn that you could perhaps upcycle, or I've upcycled a few maxi dresses that I no longer wear. You get lots of fabric from those. So it's cheaper than going to a charity shop in that you're shopping your own stash essentially. A few online shops that might be useful. I think there's Pound Fabrics. They're supposed to be quite. I can't speak 'cause I would have liked to have spoken about fabric shops that I've used online, but I only really use online either Minerva, which they're not cheap, they're not expensive, it depends what you get. They've got a bit of a sale going on at the moment, so it might be worth taking a look. I think they've got some fabrics from £2 to £3 a metre. Fabworks, which is a local fabric shop to me, and my local town is excellent for fabrics. We've got 3 fabric shops, which I know is quite unusual in these days. All of them really reasonable, and we have a market as well, and you can pick up, there is a chap on the market that sells fabric for £1 a yard still. It's not always great, but sometimes I've picked up some real bargains there. I've made my Jaquista jacket out of fabric from him. I'll insert a photograph of that for you. I think that cost me either £1 or £2 a yard. I've had wools and all sorts of him. So definitely check out your local market. Birmingham Rag Market is famous for having lots of cheap fabrics. I think it's Barry's on Birmingham Rag Market. I've never been, so I can't vouch for it. Walthamstow Market I have been to. I can tell you that the man outside Sainsbury's has some great fabrics there. Infamous from some of the early bloggers, I think. He stands outside Sainsbury's in Walthamstow Market, hence the name, man outside Sainsbury's. He's got some nice fabrics, and there are quite a lot of shops that are there in Walthamstow that have varying qualities of fabric. And I've also been on the Gold Hawk Road in London. I did find that a little bit overwhelming. There's just fabric shop after fabric shop of different prices and different qualities, and quite difficult to see. But going back to Fabworks, they have ex-designer fabric in there, and their remnant bin is phenomenal. I mean, you can pick up things for £2-3. I've shown things on here before that I've picked up for just a pound or two. Really good quality shirting cotton. So some of the other online shops that I've heard about but not used is Colville, which they have a Facebook group and do sort of auction sales. I would just issue a little bit of caution on something like that. I think with something like Colville, you have to buy what they specify, and I think it's usually sort of 2 or 3 metre lengths. So you might see something that you only need a top for, and you end up buying 3 metres and I don't know whether it's cost effective to buy like that or not really. I mean, it's only the same as buying a remnant. You get that specific amount. The other thing I would say about quite a few fabric shops, and Fabworks do this as well, which is a bit annoying, is you can only buy by the metre. So if you only need 1.25 metres, you're ending up buying 2 metres, so 3/4 metres is a bit of a waste, and you end up not quite knowing what to do with the remnants. So if I possibly can, I will go to a fabric shop. You can generally buy the amount you need within 1/4 metre increment. So Fabworks online will sell you metres at a time, but in the shop you can buy it in 1/4 metre increments. Another top tip would be know how much fabric you need before you set off buying it. One of my early blog posts that I wrote, I managed to get a McCall's dress that I think it required 4 metres, I think, and I managed to get it out of 2 metres, and I had a 2 metre remnant of shirting cotton, and that is all I had to play with a bit of pattern Tetris. You can do it, but the tip really is to know exactly how much fabric you need before you go out to buy. And to do that, try and find some, if you've already got some fabric in your stash, try and cut the pattern pieces to the size that you think you need and lay them out, because oftentimes, as particularly on commercial patterns, they will tell you that you need 3 metres, and you can more often than not get it away with 2 to 2.5 metres, and that is it's common practice, and it's not to deceive anybody, but usually to accommodate any pattern matching or anything like that. So if you know you're using a plain fabric, you can generally get away with a lot less. So knowing how much fabric you need before you set off is always a good tip. And also setting yourself a budget. So if you know you can only spend £20, just take a £20 note or something, and just know how much you've got to spend before you go. That way you don't spend any more. And don't be asking your friends to lend you any money. A couple of sneaky ways to obtain fabric is competitions. I've won quite a lot of fabric in tagging people on Instagram, a lot of fabric companies. If you've bought from them in the past, if you tag them, you can win fabric. I've done that on more than one occasion. Oh, there's also little challenges and competitions always going on Instagram. So get yourself over to Instagram and join in the fun. I would say if you're a little bit nervous about joining Instagram, I find it far friendlier environment than Facebook. Everybody seems to be supportive, and it might be my little echo chamber of people that I particularly follow. I will leave my Instagram name below. It's Frugalisama, and I'm Frugalisama throughout everything. If you want to follow me and have a look at who I follow, and you get chatting to people, you get to know about competitions. We usually let other people know about competitions. It's a good way of winning both fabric and patterns. And the Sew Over 50 account are a good one to follow too, because they alert you of any challenges that are going on. And you don't have to be over 50. Their remit is just to raise awareness of to pattern companies of people over 50 that are sewing, that we are here and want to be represented. So following on from the Sew Over 50 account over on Instagram, Susan Young blogs for the Sew Over 50s, and she wrote a very interesting post about cheap versus inexpensive fabric. And I think over the years, I think we've been lured into paying more for a design as opposed to quality. And I think really if you're on a budget, it's quite easy to get sucked into that. I'm not saying that expensive fabric isn't good quality, but neither am I saying that cheap fabric isn't good quality neither. You can buy fabric quite cheaply that has been expensive to start off with, and that's where your remnant bins come in. like I said before, Fabworks and Abercan do this as well. They sell fabrics by the weight, and the linen jacket that I made for one of my challenges for the Great British Sewing Bee, that came out of a Abercan remnant bin. And they do massive sales as well, do Abercan, where you can stuff a bag full of remnants for, I can't remember how much it is, £10. I've never been to one of these. It sounds like hell on earth to me, but if you need to do that, then that's one way of doing it. My other comment on that would be, just buy what you need. You don't have to. I mean, I've posted a recent sewing plans video, which I will link to, where I've been into a local fabric shop, and I've got loads and loads of fabric already. I've been and bought more. We're all guilty of it. But if your budget doesn't allow for that, don't let the fear of missing out get you. You just get what you need, which goes back to what I was saying about measuring out your fabric first. If you know, like this jumpsuit, I can get this out of 1.5 meters easily. I don't know what the pattern requirements say, I'll put it below, but if you measure out how much you need, that way you're not overbuying, and then you're not having to face dealing with remnants, which can be a whole other problem in itself. Let me know below what your best bargain fabric has been, if you've been able to get free fabric, or if you're like me, you don't mind using the odd duvet cover here and there, or upcycling. And if you want to subscribe to my channel, click the subscription button below, and the little bell will give you notifications next time I post. I will be posting on a Wednesday and a Friday for this series, this 100 Days of Sewing, and on a Sunday I will be posting reviews and general chatty videos. Okay, I'll speak to you later. Bye.